As usual, please excuse the background noise. So this is a little bit more about my mother. This is very important, extremely important, because it shows a wide breadth of her behavior with me and who she is. This is the reason why she should have been vetted before anyone took any of her words about anything she's saying as anything other than possibly conjecture completely. Don't get me wrong, I'm not her perfect son, but I am not the monster she has made me out to be. I am not the monster she's made me out to be. So I think I've alluded before I spoke that it seems like we've had kind of an inappropriate relationship. I was kind of her best friend. We talked starting at around 5 or 6 years old. We would talk for hours at a time, and by the time I was 10, I was counseling her on the relationship between her and my dad. Whatever that means. I don't know what I'm supposed to know, but I know that my mom was hurting, or at least that's what I thought, and so I was trying to soothe my mother. And my dad was torturing me at the times, but at the time, it wasn't until I was almost 40 that I realized that the reason why my father was torturing me was because my mother had basically made me a thorn in his side. But let's go get on with this. So my mother kept telling me, we would have our talks. You may know the story about me asking her, telling her I wish I had an older brother or sister, and she, I guess I was 10 at the time, and she said that I would have an older brother or sister, that my dad had forced her to have an abortion. I'll make that a separate story, because that deserves, that's a deceased brother or sister I would have had. That deserves its own post. But she kept promising me that she was going to make things better, is what she kept saying. I'm going to make things better. And so one day we get home, and she and my dad have been fighting or whatever. And she says, we're going to go see a counselor. The family is going to go see a counselor. And we went to go see a Dr. Bavette. This was on base. And I know that I was young. And believe me, meeting this man is probably the reason why I went into psychology. The first reason is because I have a family that's crazy as blank. It's not funny. But the other reason is because I've met some of the kindest people through these encounters that actually would never have happened if my mom wasn't crazy. I'm sorry, she's not crazy. She's a sociopath. She is a true sociopath. My mother is a sociopath. Sorry to keep repeating that, but there's a lot of noise right now. So we go to see Dr. Bavette. What happens is that these sessions with Dr. Bavette turn into basically just turned into me and my dad going to these things. It was not a family situation. It was my mother forcing her hand on us, as she had tried to do many other times. Now, she had said that the reason for seeing Dr. Bavette was to make sure that the family stays together, to improve things. That's why we're seeing a family therapist, not separate therapists, supposed to be a family therapist. Now, it wasn't long after that we had the cat incident, which was the last day that our family was together. But I had told my mother, why is it that, and don't get me wrong, my dad had blew up and he grabbed me, but that wasn't the first time. This kind of stuff had happened many times before. But it was violent enough my mother could see that there was value in it to get what she wanted, and that's the reason why. Her intentions was never to improve the family. She was always looking for an excuse to be able to divorce my dad, but she couldn't just do it herself. She needed to use me. She was hoping Dr. Bavette could help her do it, I think. And I don't know. So a few years go past, And my mother is not a few years since Bavette, maybe 2 years. Sorry, I was younger, so maybe it was actually a year and a half. Excuse me. You know how these kind of memory things are different when you're younger compared to older, so it may have been a shorter period of time. She had wanted me to go see a counselor. And I was like, I'm not going to go see no damn counselor. You put me in counseling with Dad. And, you know, there was still stigma applied with seeing a psychiatrist, a psychologist. There was stigma back then, of course. And I was like, but not just that. I was like, I'm not going to go see anybody. You put me and Dad in there when it was supposed to be the whole family, and then you broke us all up. So why would I go see, like, you already failed at something with that, and I did everything I could. I worked hard with Dr. Bavette, and why would I do that? So what she does is she calls the police. She calls the police, and they come and tell me that they're going to take me to juvenile hall, or I can go and see the doctor. I think his name was Dr. Young. I may have that wrong, but I believe it was Dr. Young. Well, let me tell you something. I was heated when I walked into that office. Well, I was heated. Like, who in the hell forces anybody, and who do you think you are, and blah, blah, blah. And he calmed me down. And he said, let's just try this out. You seem like a reasonable man. So I was like, okay. Well, let's see what we can do. By the second we finished that meeting, we finished an actual, I calmed down, and we actually had about a half an hour of good time. We had our second meeting, and by the second meeting he says, listen, I want to do our sessions, but I want to have your mother here. And I was like, that would be excellent. That would be great. Why don't we do that? My mother refused. We probably had somewhere near 6 to 8 sessions, about 2 months worth. And my mother, as I was improving, and I was doing really good, really good. My mother quits, has us quit the meeting. She basically fired him. So as soon as I'm getting actual help, she fires him. She did the same thing with Dr. Bavette. I go through high school. I start getting a pretty good habit of smoking ice. This is in Hawaii. And she had a boyfriend. She was hardly home. And I had kind of overtaken the house with my drug habit and my friends. That's the truth. Always respectful to my mother. Nobody ever disrespectful to my mother, because that would have been a problem. You can't disrespect my mother, because I would whip your damn ass. That's why. But it's the common dynamic of protecting the abuser in a manner that's, well, anyway. So I'm on a long run. I fall asleep at the table. I've got like an ounce of this ice out on the table. I've got scales out. I got a pipe out, and I am dead. You know, when you're up for many days on this stuff, when you fall asleep, you're basically in a coma almost. The door kicks open, and I hear her kind of gasp, and I did wake up, and I was like, oh shit. Oh my God, I can't believe I've done this. Yes, we had been partying and stuff like that, but I still had respect for my mom. I just wasn't like openly leaving stuff out, using right in front of her, nothing like that. But I was on it pretty good at the time. She comes in, she grabs all the dope. I think she flushed it down the toilet. And she's like, you know what? You just got to get the fuck out of here. You got to get out of here. I don't think she cursed. She doesn't curse. You got to get out of here. You got to get out of here. And I begged her. I begged my mother. I begged her to send me to treatment. Send me to treatment, Mom. Send me to treatment. No, get out. You're out. I'm like, Mom, come on. I was 17 at the time. I was 17 at the time, and I said, come on, send me to treatment. My mother claims to me that her biggest regrets is never sending me to treatment, that incident, and supposedly the firing the Dr. Young, the second therapist that I was seeing individually, the one she called the police on to force me to go to. That's what she claims. So you fast forward to as an adult, complete adult, I had gotten off of drugs in 2002, 2003. I was in treatment, actively in treatment, when that tragedy with the space shuttle, when it was coming back in and one of the tiles was loose and it came apart. It was coming through the atmosphere. I was in treatment at that time, so I can't remember if that was 2002 or 2003. I had went to junior college after that. I spent 6 months in treatments. I took the long route because I knew I'd been using for a very long time, so I was going to stay there as long as I had to. My sobriety was so important to me, and I wasn't going to risk anything, which is the way that I am. I know that they want you to think that I'm some sort of trigger happy. When I say trigger happy, not about guns, but I mean like I'm hyper reactive, let's say. But that's not the truth at all. I mean, I'm hyper reactive to protect my mom, so she's going to use that against me? Jesus. And we'll get into those stories a little bit later. The crazy stories my parents have been telling people and telling me during this crazy campaign of apparently making me look like I'm some sort of monster. So I had been clean and sober for 7 years. When I had gotten with Carmen Sue, I had started to drink beer, but I wasn't using, I'd been smoking marijuana, but none of the hard stuff. I wouldn't even take cold medicine. I never took Sudafed for 6.5 or 7 years, and then I started kind of dating this girl, and I was so always snotty and couldn't breathe, so I took Sudafed only when I went on dates with her, but I wouldn't take a chance with that any other time. Never. I had gotten on to Paxil while I was seeing a therapist in Santa Cruz. That is a whole story in itself, and it's related with the campaign. Going to see the counselor in Santa Cruz was not related to what I thought I thought I was going crazy, because everyone around me was acting so weird and coming at me with crazy stories and all this weird stuff. I'm like, man, I must be losing my mind. Because when you go to AA, they kind of convince you that, well, it's your responsibility. But the way that I was convinced that it's not just my responsibility. Like, I got to take it all on, and I got to take responsibility, which is what I've done my whole life. I've taken responsibility for this family my whole damn life, as a scapegoat and as a protector, and they've done nothing but abuse that. Every single one of them, down to my sister now. Anyway, when the reason why I took the Paxil is because I really felt like I was kind of going crazy and having a social anxiety, and I was afraid to fall into a deep depression, so I took it kind of scientifically, very small doses. Took like very kind of meticulous kind of notes about the whole thing, and I understood that it takes a while for this kind of stuff to really work. So I think I took it for a year, a little bit over a year, and the strange thing that Paxil did was, instead of it took away my social anxiety and my anxieties about things that were affecting me at that time, and it flipped them. It was like if everything was in black and white, it went from white to black. All of a sudden, I didn't have the anxieties about people that were staring at me and doing weird stuff as they do now. The same pattern of behavior. And when I say that, you should know it's not just about people staring at me. It's about this is real stuff. This is real stuff. And it made it so that when I went to go surf, I couldn't duck dive my board. I was having anxiety about putting my head under the water. Really strange stuff. So I was like, forget it. It's not working at all. It's actually doing the opposite of anything. And so I need to get off of it. Well, I didn't realize getting off of it was going to be as painful as it was. It was extremely painful. I did finally get off of it. Took about 4 to 6 weeks to get off of it. And but at the same time, my brain just wasn't well. And I had relapsed on meth. Kind of a comfort thing, I guess you'd say, because I had used it often when I was younger. Not just that, I think my brain was looking for chemicals or something. Some of these antidepressants and anti-anxiety drugs are really, really powerful. Very powerful. So I relapsed, and I think it was 2 days later I called my mom. Now understand, I did not realize that there was a campaign that was running against me. This campaign had been running since, and I'll explain this in the stories section. That'll probably be the next video, audio. In the stories, the crazy stories that these people were telling me, my family, and that it was at least 2007, because that's when I was told about the crazy Sherry, Chris Cadenhead murder story. That's how far these people go. They go very far. So I did not know there was a campaign against me. I called my mother. Remember, she told me that one of her biggest regrets was kicking me out of the house rather than having me go to treatment. Also understand that I was clean and sober for 8 years. I had shown without one relapse. The only relapse I had was actually early in treatment. Like my first couple of weeks in treatment, I had a relapse. It was secret, nobody knew. But that was it. When I got on the program and when I started to become into the program, I'm like, you know what? It's worth it. It's good to stay sober. No big deal. But there's going to be hard work, and I put that work in. So for 8 years, right? Anybody who's dealt with anybody that's got addiction issues, they know that there's usually quite a bumpy first few years. There's a bunch of relapses and all kind of crazy stuff. But I'm not like that. I can stay the course. I got a lot of strength. As you can see, tons of strength. But at the same time, so I call her up and I'm crying. I'm like, I can't believe it, Mom. I cannot believe it. I have relapsed. She laughs at me and hangs up. She laughs at me and hangs up the phone. Now, my mother told me her biggest regret is that I never went, that she wouldn't allow me to go to treatment when I asked her to, and she just kicked me out of the house. Now, how is it that this woman, who has everyone believing the crazy stories she's telling them, how is it that the authorities didn't vet her information to find out, to understand that this woman is a sociopath? Also remember, this isn't one of the last stories, one of the, not the recent last stories, but a few stories back, that this is also the woman who came in with my Aunt Tony, who claims that I confessed to her that I molested my sister, which is crazy. I love my Aunt Tony. She's an extremely strong Christian, which is, I believe, another reason why there's these church groups involved with all this. But she looks me in the eyes and tells me she had visited me at the restaurant I was working at with my aunt, and she says to me, you know, if you smile, you know, you can tell your customers anything. You can lie to them. I'm like, okay, I don't know why you're telling me this. I was one of the most successful waiters there, made big money. And I was like, you know, I think that being honest and knowing what I'm doing and being an expert on the food and the wine and being an expert on noticing everything a customer needs is what I should do. So I appreciate your information, Mom, but that's not very helpful for me. But understand that that's her ploy. Smile and you can say anything you want and they'll believe you. how it is that people in authority don't know any better is I'm beside myself with all that, but that's how it is. This woman is a sociopath. She has my father and my mother, my sister. My mother has my father and my sister on a direct line. She used to have me. You see? Understand also that when I got clean, just like when she kicked me out of seeing Dr. Young, when I got clean, she felt like she had no power over me. My father, too, felt like they had no power over me. That is one of the reasons for why they attacked me, why they destroyed my character, because they didn't want to see me rise up. They want me to be with them, which is interesting because I thought they were all successful, but they are not successful. These are very sad and angry and sociopathic individuals that will destroy me for their own gain, and that's what they've done. Why it is that the authorities have taken their word as bond is beyond me, when it's obvious that there is something very, very wrong, especially with my mother. My father's a broken man. He's always been a broken man. And my sister's just my sister, man. She's stuck between these two sociopaths. One's a sociopath, one's a narcissist with zero self-esteem. My father's a narcissist with no self-esteem, dangerous combination. And my mother is a pure sociopath that'll smile to you while she's lying to you. At least that's how she put it to me. But I've seen and I know that why would she hang up on me? And it was my first relapse in 8 years. Why would she hang up on me after laughing at me? Well, because she was part of the campaign that was driving me to go see a counselor in the first place. I laugh a little bit because I can. It's my life. It's my story. But these people are crazy. Absolutely criminally crazy. At this point, they are responsible for starting a conspiracy that ended up somebody setting my house on fire, trying to kill me and my dog, and trying to kill us from this point on. It's a running conspiracy. Part of the problem with this conspiracy is that, with the fire, is that it's local law enforcement in Santa Cruz that's protecting that situation to make it look like I started it on purpose. So that's the reason why law enforcement has been called in, partly, and they've been covering their ass by using this crazy I'm a monster story to basically have me eliminated before the truth comes out that they are also responsible. They are responsible. Law enforcement is responsible for the cover-up of the fire at my house. But let me close this with saying, as I began, they should have vetted my mother much more closely. My mother is a sociopath. She will lie to push any narrative that benefits her. The way that instead of taking the situation that my dad had made a very bad situation out of, the cat issue, and making it the last day our family was together, that was a time, that was a turning point where she could have made a real change to have the family stay together. She already had me and Dr. Bavette and Dad seeing Dr. Bavette. Right? So why is it? Because she looks and capitalizes on situations for her own benefit. She is a sociopath. That's what sociopaths do. For my father, he's a narcissist with no self-esteem, which is a confusing and dangerous situation. I've felt like that before at times, but I've not dwelled into it because I do not want to become like my father, and I do not want to become like my mother either. Thank you so much for listening.